All right, we should be working here. And this is a video for Hebrew 1. Prior to the exam, this is replacing our class on Monday where I'll be at ETS, or at least traveling to ETS. And hopefully this will help walk you through review, just another way to review, prepare for the exam, which I will be emailing to you when probably this evening, or at least if you're watching this on Monday, it'll be Monday evening. That's the plan, is to have the email go out with the exam and you can take that. So what do you need to know in order to do well on the exam? We've talked about this. By the way, I do recommend just watching last lecture again. I think that would be really helpful. We really go through the whole process of parsing. I'm going to go through some examples here, but in detail, you can watch last lecture for the whole process of how to do it. But what do you need to know? What is the process? We're going to review today. Just really simply, we're going to go through really a very fast, quick practice of what that looks like. And hopefully this will help you get a little more repetition for what practice would do for you. Now, I'm just going to go at a normal pace, but I do encourage you to pause the video as you go if you're trying to figure out things on your own, because I think that'd be really helpful. This is going to be a shorter video. It's not obviously going to be 3 hours. So we're going to I'm going to go quick and then you review it as you need. Okay, so the first thing you really need to know is you need to know your perfect and imperfect paradigm. I've said that a billion times over. And so what we're talking about there is you really should be able to reproduce or just know these charts well. You don't have to know the shamar pattern. You could know katal, but either way, you just really need to know the differences in the normal verb pattern. Shamarti, shamarta, shamart, or katalti, katalta, katalt, katal, katala, etc. And the same thing with the imperfect. You really need to know those as well. Eshmor, Tishmor, Tishmari, Yishmor, Tishmor, Nishmor, Tishmaru, Tishmorna, Yishmaru, Tishmorna. Okay, all of those are important. And I will not be providing you with any help with regard to that. So you absolutely have to know that for the exam. Now, this is not a question on the exam, but I was just reminded the other day talking with somebody, this is crucial to understanding the process of learning. And that's with number 2, you need to be able to articulate to yourself the process for solving the perfect or the vukatal or the imperfect and the vayiktal. Now, what I mean by that is that you need to be able to explain it to yourself or give an illustration about what that's supposed to look like. And this actually is related to Richard Feynman, a award-winning physicist, and he had something which people have called the Feynman technique. And if you know something, or in order to know something, in order to really learn something, you need to be able to articulate it and summarize it in a concise fashion using non-technical language, and then you need to be able to illustrate it. And so if you can describe to yourself or to somebody else what the process is for solving the perfect or the imperfect, then you're going to be in really good shape. So very simply, the way that you do this, the way I would describe this, is that the process for solving the perfect or the vukatal parsing is that if it has perfect tendencies or perfect qualities, which would be the suffixes shamarti, shamarta, shamart, shamar, shamara, shamarnu, shamartem, shamarten, shamaru. If it has a perfect quality about it with the perfect paradigm, then you're going to use sound for parsing, right? And so the key there is that the perfect is going to match with what it sounds like. So shamar sounds like a call. That's just basic. Nishmar, because of the ni fall, nishmar has a ni at the beginning, so it's going to be a nifal. Shimer or shimar is going to be a PL or PL. And so that it just sounds like what it is. That's the process for the perfect or the vocatal. For the imperfect or the vayiktol, it's going to follow the color system. And so the color system is going to be Yishmor, Tishmor, Tishmari. When you think of those, it's going to follow a very specific color pattern. And that's where, when you think of the chart, which I've given to you, like this, it's going to be green, red, green, purple, orange, red, green, purple, red, green, etc. Now, these color patterns, which match vowel patterns, red are A class, green or IE class, those are crucial. Okay, those are crucial when we're thinking through the parsing for these verb stems. So if it's imperfect or vayiktol, you go by the color system. And the third color, just by way of review, the third color will occasionally be a purple instead of what would be expected would normally be the green color for the third color. Or in the case of the Hithpael, sometimes the fourth color is a purple color instead of a green color. And the reason for that is because if there are suffixes added on, so if there's a Hirik Yod at the end, or a Shamar Nu, the Nu is at the end, or an U at the end, in those cases when there's a suffix at the end, that third color will sometimes lighten. So remember what I said is the first two colors are most essential, okay? But this is just the process, knowing that you can articulate this. The more you can articulate, the better, but just the basics is that the perfect deals with sound, the imperfect deals with sight. We live by sight and not by faith. So when you think of that, hopefully that'll help you remember it. And that's just really the key marker there. Now, the other two questions that you really should know, and this will help because perfect and imperfect are not the only options. In fact, I have taken this I think it was Ken who asked me to upload this from last class. And so I'll do that today as I release this video too. But this is what we went through in class last time. And the thing to remember is that we have a lot of options here. It's not just perfect, imperfect, vocatal, or vayiktol, but there's also the possibility of participle, imperative, or infinitive construct. Now, imperative and infinitive construct are going to look the same. And so when you're thinking, okay, how is this to be identified? You also need to think through that. So you should be able to articulate what is the marker of a call and non-call participle. And very simply, a call participle is going to have an O class. So it's either going to be a defective holum or a full letter holum. And that's going to be between the second or between the first and the second letter. So in the case like shomer, it's going to be between the first and the second letter. So that's always going to be the marker of the call participle. Now, additionally, the non-call participle, this is going to show up on 1 or 2 in the exam, is the mem prefix is going to be on a verb. Anytime you see a mem, an extra mem at the beginning of a verb, that's a non-call participle. And then you just run the color system. So purple, red, green, red, purple, green. You run the color systems and you can determine what's going on, what the system is. So that's very, very important. So the marker of a call participle is an O class between the first and the second letter. The marker of a non-call participle is a mem prefix. Okay. And then the marker of an imperative or an infinitive, two things. If you see a lamed, a bait, or a cough, but usually it's going to be a lamed, that's the primary one, on a verb, that's an infinitive construct. Otherwise, the imperative and infinitive actually have the same marker. Anytime you see a shava underneath the first letter, shamor, that's the imperative and infinitive mark. And so that's going to be regardless, if it's on the exam, you could put either one and it's fine. That's either a imperative or it's an infinitive construct. Imperative, masculine singular. So that's call imperative to ms from shamar. That's how we'd parse it. Or call infinitive construct from shamar. Either of those would be correct for that. But if there was a lamed on the front, like lishmor, then it would be an infinitive construct. Okay. Whoops. All right, here we go. My audio went out for a second there. Okay, so when we're going through this now, we're going to go through a couple practice problems here, and I'll just walk you through how you would think through it, and Lord willing, it'll be helpful. Okay, so first one, v'ahavti, or v'ahavta, rather. And so if you're thinking, okay, how is this going to be parsed? Immediately, when you're thinking through the pattern here, you're finding 3 letters. Everything else is extra. You're looking for prefixes and suffixes. So I'm looking for 3 letters. I know that the ta is going to be extra. In fact, I'm going to do green just for fun here. So ahav ta, the ta is extra. I know the vav is extra. So technically ahav is going to be the verb. That's the 3. So let's see. We are dealing then with a perfect because of the ta ending. So I know it's going to be a perfect. I know it's going to be a perfect. I also know because of the ta ending, it's going to be a 2ms. And then I also know that it already comes from ahav. So if you think about those, yeah, you're already 3/4 of the way there. Now, the only thing left is, well, if it's perfect, you're going to go by sound. And the sound, ahav, is 2a class, and a class in the perfect is call. It sounds like call. Very simple. Now, technically with the vav, though, this is kind of the 2-step process in one sense, is that you treat it like a perfect, but it's really a v'katal, so you have to put that there because of the v at the beginning. So don't forget to do that, because it's not technically a perfect, but we treat it like a perfect. We treat it like a perfect when we parse it. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. All right, now I didn't like green as much as I thought it was going to. So we're going to do blue. Let's try blue and see what happens. Okay, so now same thing. Looking at dib bar t, and I will say I recognize right away the t, and then we basically have the root. So we are dealing with a perfect here because there's no v at the beginning, so we can for sure just mark that. So perfect, and it's going to be 1cs, that's the t ending. And then we're going to be dealing with davar, the word to speak. And so what do? We, in a perfect or a vocatal, we go by sound. So de bar. What has an I at the beginning? Now, remember, a lot of students think it's the ni fall, but the ni fall has to have the ni at the beginning. So the other one is the PL or the PL. And so this is a PL because that's what it sounds like, or PL. And so PL perfect, 1cs from davar. And then you also have the confirmation. The PL will have the dogation, the second root letter. So very, very easy once you get the pattern down. All right, moving on to the next one. All right. Again, feel free to pause the video if you wish to try to figure it out yourself. So running through here, we're looking for 3 letters and what can be chopped off. So mem can sometimes be a pronominal suffix, but it's never a suffix for a verb. And in this case, the vav and the yod are much more likely to be the prefixes. And if that's the case, we're dealing with a vaidic toll. And that, because there's no suffix with a yod, that's the marker of a 3ms. Remember, eshmor, tishmori, yishmor with no suffix is 3ms. And then if the first 2 letters are the prefix, then we would be dealing with shakam. All right. And then, so what does that do? So if this is a imperfect or a Vaik toll, do we go by sound or do we go by colors? We go by colors. Red, purple, green is our color pattern. And I know what it is, but just for your sake, if we go here, let's look for red, purple, green. There it is. Red, purple, green is going to be a Hifil. So Hifil, yay. So Hifil Vaik toll 3ms from Shacham. And sometimes the Hifil will have a Hirik Yod inserted in the middle, but in this case, it does not. So we're good with the color system. All right, so Hifil Vaik toll 3ms from Shacham. All right, moving on to the next one. Okay, so there's a few things going on here. We see 5 letters, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then, yeah, this has a few things. It has a Hirik Yod in the middle. So you might be thinking, oh, that's got to be Hifil. But this is where you need to double check everything because that's an O class in between the first and second letter. And what that means is that this is going to be a call participle. And that's the big takeaway right out of the gate. You got to look for those O class, that O class between the first and second. Now, the other thing is that the eem ending should jump out as a masculine plural ending. Remember, susim, and then if susot, susa. So remember, feminine singular is the kamate ending. Ot is the feminine plural. Eem is the masculine plural. Aim is dual. So yoradim, those who go down or going down. So this would be the marker of a call participle. The in between the first and second letter, you have the O class. So call, active participle, masculine plural because of the eem ending. If it was just a regular participle, it would be yored. But because it's masculine plural, it's yoredim. And then the verb itself is yarad, which means to go down. All right. And then the next one. All right, looking here, same thing. We're looking for 3 consonants and looking for things that can be chopped off. So nothing can be chopped off at the end, but at the beginning we have an imperfect marker of Vaik toll. So because of the Vav, we're going to do Vaik toll, but it's imperfect. So we're going to be going by sound or colors, and we'll choose colors since it's imperfect. So Vaik toll. Now the Tishmor can be 2ms or 3fs. So you could put either of those. Tishmor from our paradigm. And then it comes from Mahar. All right, there we go. All right, so now color system, purple, red, green. Purple, red, green is going to be PL. If you check the chart, purple, red, green would be a PL. Okay, so just very, very basic. PL, Vaik toll, 2ms, 3fs from Mahar. All right, a couple more. Okay, so this one has a lot of letters going on. Trying to find 3 and looking at the beginning and the after part, okay? So we do see something at the end that we can chop off, and then we do see 2 things at the beginning. Now, this is hitpaels, which is what this is, are the easiest thing in the world to identify once you get the hang of it, because anytime you hear a hit or a yit, et, anytime there's a second letter tav prefix, it's a hitpael. With regard to a hey. Now, this is actually the perfect marker. In the perfect, it's always hit pael, hit ashku, hish aku, or hit shamru, or something like that. But in this case, it's hit asku. And when you're identifying this, anytime you have a hit at the beginning, that's perfect. But if it was et or yit or tit or nit, all of those would be imperfect. And in that case, the first letter would be a yod or a tav or an aleph, or in some cases a nun. And that would be the first letter, but the second letter would still be a tav. So that's how you could tell the difference between imperfect and perfect. But in this case, it's a hit pael, and it's a imperfect. Sorry, perfect. Perfect. And I'm going to just, for kicks and giggles, switch back colors. Perfect. And then it's actually a 3 CP from Asak. So from Asak. So hit pael, perfect, 3 CP from Asak. Okay, now moving on. A couple other things here, just 2 more. So this next one is a little tricky. We see 4 letters, but notice there's nothing really that stands out as far as a prefix and a suffix, but you have to get something. And the only thing you can get rid of is what happens at the very beginning. And remember my rule, anytime there's a lamed at the beginning, it's an infinitive construct. So call infinitive construct, and you say, well, how do I know it's a call? Well, we haven't learned any other infinitive constructs, so there you go. But the same principle applies, but it's going to be a call infinitive construct if you see one. And then it comes from Zakar. And then notice, even if the lamed wasn't there, remember the big takeaway is the shava underneath the first letter. That's always going to be the marker of the infinitive construct or the imperative. Okay, so call infinitive construct from Zakar. All right, then again, we're going to run through the system here and say, okay, let's see, is it perfect or imperfect? Or is there anything that would communicate it's a participle? Is there anything that would communicate, and how would we tell if it's a participle? If there was a mem on it, a mem prefix, a o class, that would be a non-call participle. A mem prefix communicates non-call participle. If it has an o class between the first and second letter, that would be a call participle. And if it had a shava underneath, it would, of the first letter, it would be a infinitive construct or an imperative. But those exceptions, if we don't see anything there, then we are going to assume perfect, imperfect, vocatal, viactol, and that's what we have here. We have a lot of letters, a lot of things we can get rid of, get things off the beginning and off the end. And then we're with our 3 letters. By the way, just one more reminder so that nobody makes this mistake. There are always and only 3 letters in the root. Okay. So don't forget that. You should always have 3 letters somehow. All right. So looking through that, we got our 3 letters. And we also can tell that this is either a 2FP or a 3FP in context. And it's going to be imperfect because of the prefix. So we know it's imperfect. 2FP, 3FP, and we also have our letters. Might as well throw those in there too. Yeah, so imperfect, 2FP, 3FP, kaas, and what do we got here? So we got to go by color system. So red, purple, green, green, red. So we can ignore the last 2 colors because those are too many. But red, purple, green is going to give us a hifil. So hifil imperfect, 2FP, 3FP from kaas. So you notice when we go through this, it's just very methodological, walking through, knowing what you know, working through it all. So it's just going to be very basic going through that. There's not going to be any surprises. I just want to make sure you know the pattern, know kind of how to do this. You're trying to identify the stem, identify the tense, and once you can do that, then you're able to figure that out. And if the color system doesn't match anything, by the way, in the imperfect, then it's just a call, right? And remember, the third color has a little bit of flexibility to it. So it's pretty basic. And I'm not going to be tricking you. This semester is all about learning the basics. So there you go. Just beat these into your mind and you'll do very, very well on the parsing. There's about, I think just about half the points on the exam are parsing. And then you have about 30% on vocab, and then another 20% on translation from a variety of sources. And again, remember, don't get flustered. I think there's maybe one or two translations on the exam that you haven't seen, just to test you thoroughly. Otherwise, a lot of it's drawn from your homework. So make sure you're up to date on that. That's a good way to practice, is just working through that. And yeah, I think it'll be really good. So let me know if you have any questions by email. I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. Otherwise, yeah, looking forward to seeing what happens. I'll also try to email you out later on, maybe after Thanksgiving, some tips and tricks you guys can do over the break to get ready for next semester. And really, but it just involves keeping up with Hebrew. In fact, if I can give one final plea and admonition to you, is don't be somebody who does not look at Hebrew over break, but just make it a ritual to do it every day if you can. Vocab is most important, staying up on vocab. But realistically, this is the difference between somebody who will maybe barely survive next semester or somebody who will thrive and use Hebrew for the rest of their life, is that if you can just keep up on the things that you have learned this semester, or even just re-solidify it. Maybe you don't know it as well as you want to. Just really focus on doing that, and you'll set yourself up for not just a great semester next semester, but even more importantly, you'll set yourself up for a lifetime of just enjoying and utilizing Hebrew. So, Lord willing, that's what we're all going for. All right. So, I hope that's good. And let me know if you have questions. Otherwise, we will be in touch. All right. Now I got to figure out how to stop this recording. All right. We'll talk to you later.